I never imagined I'd be standing on the verge of something fresh at this point in my life, something that made my heart beat in ways I hadn't felt in years. I was 39 years old, somewhere between youth and old age. I felt imprisoned between who I used to be and the person I was becoming. My environment used to seem active and full of life, and I had been married to him for over 2 decades. However, the brilliance faded over time. Passion became a chore, and love became a habit. My spouse, who was once full of energy and excitement, suddenly seemed to be content with peaceful nights apart and accepting life's inevitable direction. I still wanted more. Personally, I still wanted to be felt, heard, and seen. I'm not sure when my kid Jack began to notice how I had changed. Maybe he had always. He was now 18, mature, self-assured, and observant, which sometimes unsettled me. Although we had always been close, it seemed odd to having him around now, as if he was looking after me, rather than the other way around. "Are you pleased, Mom?" One evening as we stood in the kitchen, a simple inquiry was presented. There was stillness throughout the house. The ticking of the clock echoed between us. My spouse had gone to bed early. As I stirred my drink, I softly laughed. "Why are you asking that? Of course, my beloved." Jack folded his arms and leaned against the counter. I peered into his eyes, shocked at their intensity. "You don't seem to be like that." When had he become so knowledgeable and experienced? The little child at my side had transformed. The realization that he was now a young man hit me harder than I had expected. I sighed as I glanced down at my hands, which were clutching my cup. "I understand that life changes from time to time. People change, but you should never give up on life." His voice was filled with anxiety as he spoke gently. "Mom, you used to be really lively." I wanted to relate everything that happened with him. The isolation, the quiet anguish of being unseen, desire for something extraordinary. However, since he was my son, he was not responsible for some obligations. I smiled as a consequence. "Really, Danny? I'm okay." He seemed unconvinced. In the weeks that followed, I grew more conscious of Jack's persistent presence, his efforts to engage me in conversation, and his ability to make me laugh. His protective personality had altered over time. He was no longer just my son. I was beginning to depend on him. We hadn't been for a stroll in years until one evening. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the air was cold. I felt liberated for the first time in a long time. As we strolled side by side, I said, "Tell me something. What is your own vision for the future?" Jack was quiet for a long before answering. "I'm not sure yet, but I know I want to live a regret-free life." I offered a yearning grin. "That is a wonderful purpose." "How about you?" he questioned. I stopped moving. It was a surprising question. I'd been a wife, mother, and caretaker for a long time. My dreams and passions had been stifled and buried behind commitments. However, as I stood there under the clear night sky, I came to a revelation. I did not want to vanish. I did not want to be a mere shadow of my previous self. I wanted to live life once again. "I believe I wish to resume self-sufficient life," I said slowly, and Jack smiled. "Excellent." Suddenly something changed. For the first time in years, I was excited to see where this new route would take me, even though I had no clue. As we went through the empty streets, a lovely song remained in the air, enveloping us like a distant whisper. A few couples moved to the mellow rhythm of an old jazz tune as the warm light from a little cafe flowed over the pavement. The sight was intriguing. Two folks going through time, their problems erased as they are immersed in music. Even for a little moment, the sight captivated me. I hadn't done anything like that in a long time, allowing myself to be there without reservation or anticipating what could come next. Jack then grabbed my hand before I could answer. He asked me to dance with him. I shook my head, laughing. "What are you, Danny?" However, he was already drawing me towards the cafe's open patio and its pleasant lighting. There wasn't time to say no or ask questions. As we strolled, his hand remained solid and warm in mine, and when we danced, he put his other hand softly on my waist. He guided me with confidence which shocked me. I laughed, half protesting. "You don't even dance, Danny. You don't either, so we're equal." He grinned. A true, unfiltered chuckle emerged from someplace deep within me, something I had not experienced in a long time. The cafe music encompassed us, guiding our movements, and we danced like we'd been doing it forever. There was simply the beat of the music, the delicate twinkling of string lights above us, and the feeling of being alive. No uneasiness or reluctance. I spun, maybe not gracefully, but it made no difference. I pushed back my cheeks, heated from the unexpected exhilaration. Oh, hush. His expression softened instantly, just as it had previously. He muttered, his voice barely heard over the music. You should do it more. What are you planning to do, Lev? I murmured, and the words had more weight than I had expected, since in truth I had forgotten how to live. How to enjoy moments for their own sake without guilt or worry for the future. I had been a wife, mother, and caretaker for so long that I had lost track of my own identity. But I felt liberated today, something I hadn't felt in years, dancing to music none of us knew well. Under the cafe lights, Jack smiled as if he could see the enlightenment oozing into my essence. Before the song finished, he whirled me one more time and remarked, "You're beautiful when you're happy." I exhaled as the exhilaration of the moment subsided. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps it was time to get back to life. Something had shifted inside me as we went out of the cafe and down the street. For the first time in a long time, I was curious about what might happen next, even though I had no clue. When we arrived, the home was quiet, lighted by the dim glimmer of the streetlights outside. My spouse was already sleeping as usual, with the same stillness and routine. However, there was something different tonight. I had no urge to sleep. I felt really alert for the first time in years. The recollection of dancing under the cafe lights, laughing uncontrollably, and feeling like myself again still made my skin hum. Jack took notes. He did. "Aren't you fatigued resting against the doorway and smiling pleasantly at me?" he asked. After a little delay, I shook my head. "I do not think I am a number." He grinned and said, "Good. After that, let us take action." I raised an eyebrow as if he were shrugging. "Hurry up." "When was the last time you did anything, just because you were happy?" I was transfixed by the question, because I couldn't believe I had spent so many years ensuring the happiness of others, including my kid, husband, and family, that I had neglected to ask myself the same question. At some time, Jack grabbed my jacket. "Let us go, please," I scowled. "Where are you going?" "You'll see," he said, his naughty eyes twinkling. I hesitated for a second. The home remained quiet. My spouse was sleeping, so I should probably go to bed as normal. However, I then pondered about my emotions from tonight. How free, how light, and something inside of me refused to let that sensation go. So I gathered up my coat and followed him out the door. We arrived outside a dancing studio 20 minutes later. Puzzled, I looked to Jack. At this time, a dancing studio. He grinned as he used a key to open the door. I may have convinced a buddy to let us stay the night there. I shook my head, disbelieving it. "And precisely how did you do that?" He shrugged. "I do things in my own manner." He pushed the door open and switched on the lights before I could protest. The polished hardwood floor shone in the soft lighting, and the studio was unoccupied. One wall was lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors, which mirrored us back in hushed anticipation. The place had a holy feel about it, as if something was waiting to awaken inside. Jack thumbed through his phone before approaching a small speaker in the corner. A second later, the room was filled with soothing music. I swallowed regularly and slowly. "Jack," I don't know whether he turned to me and interrupted. "No excuses. We simply danced tonight." As I exhaled, I stared at myself in the mirror. The lady staring back at me seems confused and reluctant. There was another thing behind it, something that was simply waiting to be released. "Okay," I said, "but it's your responsibility if I seem silly." He laughed. "Deal." And we began to move exactly as at the cafe. I began stiff, moving awkwardly and methodically, as if I had hidden the part of myself that used to appreciate moments like these for far too long. Jack, however, was patient. He guided me softly, moving with comfort and confidence. He said, "Just feel, don't think." I closed my eyes and let go for the first time in years. I gave up to the music, allowing my body to remember what it was like to move confidently and without reservations. And something inside of me burst open as I danced. A flood of emotions, memories, and a longing for something I wasn't even conscious I was missing. I had been fading into the background of my own life for so long, but tonight I was here breathless and completely free. I was giggling at the conclusion of the song, exuberant, alive, and delighted. Jack grinned. "You see, someone told you you were capable of it." Still recovering my breath, I shook my head. I'm surprised I forgot how much I enjoy this. Well, he said maybe you should quit forgetting. Perhaps you should take action. I hesitated and his expression became softer. Attend a class. Spend more time outside. Do something for yourself, just... My chest tightened as I looked at him. Can I? Was it really feasible for me to leave my comfortable, safe, and predictable existence and seek something only for myself? Before I could challenge it, the answer came. Yes. I responded with a grin. The decision has already been made. I think I will. Something altered inside of me. I wasn't simply his wife. I was more than simply his mother. I was the one, and it was adequate for the first time in a long time. I felt lighter than I have in years when I awoke the next morning. The unexpected night of dancing made my body ache a bit, but I felt lively rather than fatigued. As I stretched, I could still feel the thrill from last night throbbing through my veins. The movement of my body, the way I let myself to relax, was ecstatic. When Jack entered the kitchen with a grin on his face, I was still feeling that thrill. He grabbed for the coffee pot, teasingly remarking, "You are still glowing." Even though I rolled my eyes, I couldn't help smiling. Last night was wonderful, so he suggested we try again. I raised an eyebrow. He drank his coffee again, leaning against the counter. Why quit now, I wondered. If you are serious about something, you must learn something new, something exhilarating. Intrigued, I tilted my head as if he grinned and placed down his cup bachata. I blinked bachata. Yeah, he said, pulling out his phone and started to play music. The kitchen was filled with a gentle, rhythmic song. It was smooth, seductive, and unlike anything I'd ever danced to. He said that it is more than simply a dance. It's about connecting with the music, expressing yourself, and letting it tell a story. He swayed slightly to the music while I bit my lip and listened to the song. I was moved by the way he articulated it, a strange phenomenon, a problem I wanted to dance like that, but had never done so before. I drank my coffee gently while pretending apathy. Okay, please teach me. Jack grinned. This is going to be great. That evening, we pulled the furniture aside to make more space in the living room. My chest started fluttering with anxious excitement as soon as the music started. Okay, Jack murmured, stepping ahead of me. Moving is not the only aspect of bachata. Fluidity and building a connection with your partner are also important. It has to do with emotions. I took a long breath and nodded. Show me his shoulders. He seized my hand. The initial step is to move side to side to the rhythm. Tap 1, 2, and 3. Initially reluctant, I followed his lead. The rhythm was hypnotic, having a deeper tone, although slower than salsa. It was nearly personal. He muttered, "Good," as his hands firmly gripped my waist. Now let's talk about physical mobility. With each stride, he moved his hips slightly, causing my cheeks to flush. Calm down, he said. I believe you are overanalyzing things. I asserted that I felt at ease. It was all in the sneer. Then demonstrate it. I shrugged off my anxiety and exhaled. I closed my eyes for a time, allowing the rhythm to sink into my bones. He muttered, when I opened them again, I moved more fluidly, mimicking his movements and allowing my body to better follow his. Everything else evaporated as the music swirled around us, filling the narrow space between us. There was more involved than simply dancing, a quiet vow of confidence, a discourse without words. In addition, I had been parenting my son Marcus alone for some years. Our friendship was unshakable because it was built on years of consistent support, humor, and trust. Marcus had always had a fascination for horses, and I knew just what to do. When he became 21, I contacted old pals who managed a respected equestrian school and enrolled him in a course that would help him enhance his skills. I was delighted to watch him embrace the courses with the same zeal that he displayed for everything he liked. I decided to concentrate on my own life, while Marcus adjusted to his new life in equestrian training. I hadn't had a committed relationship in a long time. I believed it could be time to welcome someone into my life, even if I didn't feel the desire for romance right soon. Lucas came into play at that moment. Lucas had an uncanny ability to enchant people. He had charm, he was successful, gorgeous, and always had the right words to say. But I never really connected with him. For some reason, he looked to be a safe choice, one that I could safely recommend to my friends. Even if he didn't evoke great sentiments in me, he was the ideal companion. However, I convinced myself that friendship was more important than desire. After a few months of dating Lucas, I saw Marcus had changed. He had become more aloof. Our normally comfortable talks seemed tight today. I regularly saw him looking at me with an inscrutable face. I assumed he was simply getting acclimated to his new schedule, but it felt like our tension was rising. I responded, "You're home early." Marcus shrugged his gaze, flitting to me before returning to the water glass he was holding. "Yes, I was thinking about a couple things." With a long quiet between us, I poured myself a drink. "Would you want to discuss it?" I questioned. He stopped for a second. Then he groaned and set down his drink. "Do you like him?" It was a surprising question. With Lucas, I scowled. "Why are you asking?" He crossed his arms and leaned up against the counter. "Mom, I just don't see it. You do not shine around him. You laugh more when we talk about issues that are important to you." I shook my head, laughing softly. Relationships aren't just about thrills. Marcus, sometimes all you need to do is find someone with whom you can spend your life. He clenched his jaw. It sounds like more settling. I halted due to the force of his speech. I studied him for a long time, certain that there was more to his words. "Marcus." I spoke carefully, choosing my words. "All I want is for you to be satisfied." He then went, leaving me with an unidentifiable sense. As I laid in bed that night, my thoughts returned to Marcus's early years. I thought about how he had always been my main source of happiness, and how many years we had spent together, and I remembered the way he had looked at me this evening, like if we shared a secret. I knew something had changed, but I wasn't sure what it was. His typically easy laughs became forced as they lasted too long. I saw that he seemed to be terrified of crossing an imaginary line since he stopped before touching my shoulder or passing me in the corridor. Lucas stopped over for supper one evening. He came in with a bottle of wine and kissed my cheek. Marcus entered the kitchen as I was arranging the meal, his hair still moist from his recent shower. When he spotted Lucas, his lips squeezed into a narrow line, he paused at the doorway. I glanced at him and said, "You're just in time to eat." His voice was strained as he responded. I already owned something. His attention stayed focused on Lucas. Lucas laughed. "Sit with us for a while, kid." Marcus's mouth constricted. "I'm not a kid." Lucas, clearly amused, lifted his eyebrow. Yes, it meant nothing. I let out a breath, feeling the tension between them rise. "Marcus, just stay for a minute." He was still for a time before carefully pulling out a chair and taking a seat across from Lucas. He scarcely talked or touched his meal. I tried to keep the conversation light, but every now and then I saw him looking at me with an inscrutable expression. I didn't see Marcus sitting alone in the living room staring into space until Lucas had departed later that evening. After a few delay, I sat down with him on the sofa. "What is the wrong with you?" Gently I asked. After a lengthy pause, he turned to face me. Something more was in his gaze now, something I couldn't place my finger on. "Marcus claimed you're not in love with him." My heart skips a beat as I hear his certainty. Marcus cut me off before I could continue. "You do not. You think that being with him is the right thing to do?" I took a big breath. The reality sat heavy on my chest, yet I wanted to dispute and convince him he was wrong. Lucas was not loved by me. Actually, I've never had. He was pragmatic. He helped me fill the gaps in my life. Marcus's voice had a unique tone that sent my heart racing. He took a step forward, bringing us closer. He placed his hands in his pockets. The lengthy shadows thrown over his face by the golden light of the setting sun emphasized his sharp features and the flare of something in his expression that I wasn't yet ready to recognize. His voice was softer than normal as he said, "I enjoyed watching you. You seemed unconstrained." I felt my grip on the reins tighten as I gulped. Marcus nodded, his gaze flitting over my face before resting on my eyes. It felt nice. He seemed to be seeking for something, either permission or an answer, and his stare felt weighty. The silence remained thick and deep. Despite the coolness of the air, my skin felt too heated. I could hear my heartbeat too clearly. I cleared my throat and made a little back step. "We must recover the horses." Marcus blinked as if he had awoken from a trance. He exhaled and shook his head slightly, almost amusedly. "Yes, precisely." However, our excitement persisted as we returned the horses to their stables. Things just got worse. I could feel it every time he sneaked a glimpse at me or brushed my hand as we both went for the same belt. With each small contact, I felt an electric charge. Marcus was no longer disguising anything which I attempted, but couldn't ignore. After we finished, he leaned against the stall door to watch me brush down my horse. He wasn't trying to be nonchalant, even though his arms were crossed over his chest. He seemed intense, if anything. I faked a chuckle and swallowed hard. He did not deny that you were gazing again. I stopped and then looked him in the eye. Marcus, my life is good. I'm self-sufficient, run my own company, and have raised a kid who I'm very proud of.